Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you particularly for your rigorous follow-up on this issue. We all appreciate what you've done, Senator Mitchell, and as I hinted to you before the hearing, in your spare time, Congress could undoubtedly use your services with a few disputes I could name. I'm particularly pleased that your report has come up before baseball returns to Washington this spring. I want to ask you a question about the naming of names, which I think is one of the most valuable parts of your report. And you named 90 players who you alleged used steroids and human growth hormone. It's interesting to note that few have denied the allegation since. I'm going to ask you about one who has. And to their credit, some have come forward to say that they indeed were involved in such use. I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to the criticism, however, to the naming of players, and some have alleged that you had too little corroboration in doing so. Could you tell us what standard of evidence you used in deciding when to name players and when not to name players? Were there some you did not name because you did not think that they had met whatever standard you were using?
Right. I carefully reviewed and considered all of the information that we received about the purchase, the possession, or the use of performance-enhancing substances by Major League Baseball players. We received information from a wide variety of sources. And of course, in every instance, we attempted to establish the truthfulness of the information that we received before anything was placed in our report. Since the Commissioner had made clear from the outset that he wanted this report to be public, we obviously understood that our responsibility was to learn as much as we could and to make public that which we could in response to the mandate to accurately, fairly, and thoroughly provide all the information possible. Now, we received information from so many sources that it would take far more than time permits here in this limited time to deal with every single source of information. Some of it was documents, some of it was canceled checks, mailing receipts, admissions of by persons. A significant number of persons admitted the allegations over the course of time. Some of it, as has been noted previously, came from the testimony of two men, Kirk Radomski and Brian McNamee.
Well, let me ask you, Senator, because I think that those are precisely the kinds of sources we would have expected you to use under the circumstances. But let me ask you about the most controversial name in your report, perhaps,
I'm sorry?
Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
7-time Cy Young Award winner, whom you say was a user of steroids and human growth hormone. Now we see Mr. Clemens coming out and strongly denying these allegations and doing so publicly. Why do you think he refused your invitation to talk to you before the release of the report?
I do not know why. As I stated earlier, Congresswoman Norton, we followed the legal process which we were required to follow, and that is notification of then current players through the Players Association. As I described earlier, and I will not repeat so as not to take up all of your time, the way it turned out, there were two letters that
he obviously hasn't told you and he hasn't told us. That's why I wondered. No. But could I ask you about Mr. McNamee, on whom you relied heavily for him and perhaps others? Why do you believe that Mr. McNamee was a credible witness, and have you learned anything since the report that would lead you to reassess your conclusions regarding this credibility that you found in Mr. McNamee's allegations?
Since the report was issued, Andy Pettitte has said that Mr. McNamee's statements about him were true. So they confirmed the testimony.
And you believe he was a credible, you believe he was credible on Roger Clemens. Why?
Well, let me describe the process. We made every effort to establish the truthfulness of his testimony. Through his attorney, he entered into a written agreement with the United States Attorney's Office for Northern California. That agreement provides that McNamee will cooperate with that office. No truthful statements can be used against him in any federal prosecution by that office. If, however, he should be untruthful in any statement made pursuant to that agreement, he may be charged with criminal violations, including making false statements, which is a felony. As part of his cooperation with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and at its request, Mr. McNamee agreed to be interviewed by me and my staff and to provide truthful information. I interviewed him 3 times, once in person, twice by telephone. His personal lawyer participated in each of the interviews. Also participating were federal prosecutors and agents from the FBI and the Internal Revenue Service. I told him at the outset of each interview that I wanted nothing but the truth. No exaggeration, no minimizing, just tell the truth. Also on each occasion, Mr. McNamee was informed by the federal officials present that if he made any false statements during these interviews, he would subject himself to further criminal charges.
Senator Mitchell,
Thus, I just want to make one final statement. Thus, Mr. McNamee had an overwhelming incentive to tell the truth. And I've just finished, Mr. Chairman. The third and last interview was in early December 2007, just before we released the report. The purpose was to make absolutely certain that we had accurately understood and reported his statements to us. And to make certain that we'd achieved that objective, a senior member of my investigative staff read to him verbatim the portions of the report that were attributed to him. At the conclusion of the interview, as we had at the beginning, we reminded him that all we wanted was the truth. We asked him if he was completely comfortable with the truth and accuracy of the statements which would be included in the report. And he said that he was. He had a couple of minor suggestions which had no material effect on the report, and we proceeded on that basis.
Thank you very much.
And as noted, I asked Mr. Clemens to meet with me to give him an opportunity to respond to the allegations, and he declined.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. Senator Mitchell, in other words, despite the public presentation by Mr. Clemens that the testimony was not accurate, you continue to feel comfortable with Mr. McNamee's credibility?
We believe that the statements provided to us were truthful.
Thank you very much. Ms. McCollum?